All right, hi, this is Bill Hitchcock. I'm back. I got cut off there trying to do some formatting. So I'm just going to finish up a couple quick things here, and we should be ready to start computing out our down payments and so on. So first what I'm going to do is I just want to adjust the title here. I'm going to grab Reid Furniture Store, select that cell, cut it by hitting Control X, go to cell A1, paste it there. Then I'm going to hold my Shift key and cursor all the way across to the right to column J, and I want to choose Merge and Center and get Reid Furniture Store there. Other things that I had done is on cell D3 I gave a range name to the 10%. So if you just click on cell D3, click up in the name box, type in required REQ down, don't put a space in there, it doesn't like spaces. That'll work. And then I did the same thing for the number of monthly payments, clicked on cell D4, I just typed in num payments so I can use those. Alright, so that looks good. Let's take our down payments then, and we'll use an if function for this because I've got some of these sales were financed, some were paid in full. So I'm going to hit Control Home, get up to the top, and type in the following functions that we'll use for the down payment, the balance, and the last payment date, and that's the if function. So we'll type in equals if, parenthesis. I want to check if the finance, or I should say the type is finance, but I'm going to always want to use this particular cell, so I'm going to hold my function key, hit F4 once, twice, 3 times because I want the column to be held absolute, not the row. Check if that equals the word finance. If it does, my down payment is the amount times the required down payment. So that way if I change this value in cell D3, it will automatically update it. I'll type in a comma. So if that's not true, if it's not financed, we're just going to return a 0. Hit parenthesis, hit enter. Let's format that cell with a dollar format, and then double click on the fill handle and copy that all the way down. So if you check and look for some of the paid in full, notice that those show up as a dash or 0. Here's another one, 0, there's no down payment required. Alright, so we go back up to the top. Let's copy this formula over for the balance, and the reason I'm doing that is that way I don't have to bother with the finance portion. But if that's true, I want to change this function, so my balance is going to be the amount G7 minus the down payment. And let's check and make sure that that indeed has a dollar format. We can double click and I'll check my balances. That's all looking good. If it's paid in full, there is no balance because they paid $1,100 as a cash price. So that looks good there. All right, finally, we'll get the last payment date. I'm going to copy that formula over. Check here, it says if F7 is financed. If that's true, I want to change the function that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to use an eDate function. And the eDate basically gives me a new date based on so many months into the future. So my starting date is the date the customer made the purchase. Type in a comma. The number of months is the value in cell D4, in other words, that number of payments there. Type in a parenthesis, hit enter, and you get kind of an odd looking number. It's given me 44,621. So I need to reformat that so you could use a short date format. So there it tells me if they bought it in 2018, their last payment is going to be in 2022. So in fact, what I can do is I'm just going to use this format. So I'll click on the date format, choose my format painter, come over to the last payment date, and we can copy this down a ways. But notice when I do that for the paid in full, I'm getting the Saturday, January 00, 1900. So that doesn't look quite right. So I'm going to go up, check my format or my function, and it says if it's financed, we use the E date, but if it's not financed, I'm using a 0. I don't really want 0. I want to put in either a quote dash, or what you could do is you could do like NA, for example, or you might even just tell them last payment date, it's already been paid. And then I'll copy that formula all the way down here. Try it out. It's already paid off, so that looks good. We can double click on my fill handle just to copy this all the way down. And we've got some of these loans that have, or purchases that are already paid off, or paid in full, however you want to do it. All right, kind of your choice. All right, let's save this. And move on. We're already done with tasks 2, 3, and 4 with those computations on the if functions. I want to add some database functionality to be able to do some what if and kind of scenarios and that sort of thing to find out where we, I guess, what percent of our sales are done as finance, what percent are paid in full, what are from certain departments, all of those kinds of things. We can do that with some database functions. So to set this up, I'm going to copy my field names, highlight them, select them, hit end and down. I want to put this down a little ways at the bottom here because I want to have a few things in here. Let's see, let's put it right there. And I'm trying to decide how I want to set some of this stuff up. I want to compute out the totals, the averages, the min, and the max. So I guess I should have left a few more rows in here. Let's insert a few more rows. And I'm just highlighting these rows here. I'll right click on it, choose insert, and we're going to start out, and I just want to double check and see how I set this up on my printout. Give me a moment when I do that. All right, so for in here, this is for all my records. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a count function. Equals count, parenthesis, cursor up a cell, hold my shift key, and I can either hit end and up, or you could just click on the word rec, hit enter. I got 107. I'm going to use my format painter here. So I get the same kind of format on this one, and that looks better. So I know that there's 107 records. Yeah, that added up. That looks good. Then I want to get the total, the average, the min, the max, and we want to do something like this. For selected records. So let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items there. So I'm going to want to have 1, 2, need to insert a few more rows here. Four more rows. And we can highlight this, copy it, paste it down here. This is going to be for our select recs. And for my select records, we can test out one of the DBase functions. So it's equals DCOUNT, parenthesis. For the DCOUNT, you need a database, a field, and criteria. So my database, that's all this information up at the top. So I click on cell A6, hold my shift key, end and down, go one more record down because I want to leave a blank one there, go all the way across. There's my database. Type in a comma. The field is whatever field you want to count up, the record number, the salesperson, the date, and so on. In this case, I want the record number. Type in another comma. The criteria, that's down here at the bottom. So my criteria is those copied field names. Hold my shift key, go across, hit enter, and when we do that, I get 107. So now what I want to try to do is put in some sort of criteria. So for example, for the bedroom or the departments, we could try bedroom. So I'm just going to copy bedroom up here, put it in, and I find out that there are 24 records that have the word bedroom in it. All right, so that looks good. Let's get some totals. So for all the records, equals sum parenthesis. I want to go up to the amounts, shift and up. Probably I'll do the formatting later. Equals average parenthesis, and in this case I'm going to just click right on the word amount, hold my shift key, click on the blank cell underneath my last record. There's the average. I can do the same kind of thing for the minimum. Click on the amount, hold the shift key, click on the blank cell, and equals max parenthesis, click on amount, click on the blank cell, hit enter. That looks good. I'm going to copy these formulas across for the down payment and the balance. So we've got those. Let's format them with a dollar format. Looks a little cleaner. To match up for the amounts, I'm going to highlight those, get rid of the decimals, and we're good there. All right, so I've got the grand totals, if you will. All right, next what we can do is let's take those, put this down here for the select records, but instead of using sum, average, min, and max, we want to use DSUM. So equals DSUM parenthesis. The database is cell A6, shift and down. I'm still holding shift. I'm going all the way across. Now for this one, I always want to use these cells, so I'm going to hit function F4 because I'm going to want to copy this across to the right, so I want to lock that in place. The field is my amount, so I'm going to click on cell G6, type in a comma, and the criteria is down here at the bottom, A126, hold my shift key, right, that's too far, function F4, hit enter, and that's the total for all the bedrooms. Got to repeat this for average, min, max, and so on. I don't know if you try to copy this formula, you can get a start. I don't know. You might as well just type in the formula. That's what I'm going to do. Equals D average. It's good practice. Click on cell A6. Shift and down. Right. Function F4. Got the first part. Type in a comma. The field is my amount. Cell G6. Type in a comma. Criteria is down here at the bottom. I'm holding my shift key. Function F4. There's my average. Equals D min. Again, it's the database. Shift and down. Right. Function F4, comma. Field is the amount, comma. Criteria are these cells here. and function F4 on that, and enter. And finally, last one, the D max. So I'm going to click on my record number, shift and down, go all the way across to the right, type in a comma, choose the amount. Oops, you know what I forgot to do? Sorry. I'll fix it later. I forgot to hit F4 for the database portion of it. So we'll put this in, function F4 for that one. Let's see, there we go. And then I'm going to try clicking on this A6, and we'll try hitting function F4 on that. Click on the J114, function F4 on that. That looks good. Hit enter. I've got all my numbers. I better save this. I want to highlight those formulas, and I'm going to paste just the formulas when I go across. So I'll hold shift, right, under home. Oh, hang on, I better try this again. I better highlight my cells, hit Control C to copy them, shift, right, and I want to choose under paste. I want to paste the formulas. And let's see, that looks good. We've got all this. One thing I can do to test it out is I'm going to get rid of my criteria here. So I've got all 107 records for the select ones, and I want to see if those numbers do indeed match what they were for the totals. And it looks like they are, so that looks good. Other things that we can do with it is if I want to look for one specific record, so for example, record number 107 is for Gruenwald Finance. The total amount is $25.05 and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in for my record number 107 and my total, my average, my min max, that all matches up, so that all looks good. Looks like my formatting's a little bit funky, so let's do this. Let's just copy in one of these records underneath the criteria. That way I'll have all the formatting set up exactly like the records. We can delete this out and we're back to all the records. So that looks pretty good. Last part of task number 5 is we have an extract area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Home. I want to save this before I do any more damage. And I want to copy my field names, go all the way to the bottom, and here's the criteria area. I'll leave a couple of blank rows in case I need to use those. And in A30, I'm going to paste in my extract area right there. So how I can use that is, say for instance I'm interested in Gallagher. So I'm going to copy Gallagher down here. Is my criteria. Excuse me. And I've got 34 records. And if you want, sometimes that helps just to go ahead and sort these records to help verify everything. So if I scroll through here, here's my records for Gallagher. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep going down. There it is. If I look down here on my status bar, I can see the count is 34, so that looks correct. That worked. All right, I've got that. So what I'm going to do is go to the bottom of my spreadsheet, and I'm going to choose under the Data tab Data, Advanced Filter. So what I want to do is I don't want to filter those records in place. I want to copy them to another location. So I choose that. My list range, I don't want what's in there, so I'm going to delete that stuff. Just backspacing it all out. My list range is going to be cell A6. Oh, hang on, I clicked the row instead of just the cell. A6, Shift N down, and I'm going one record past the end, which will be fine. My criteria range, I need to change that. And my criteria range is the same criteria that we used before, so I've got Gallagher listed in there. And then finally where it says copy to, that's my extract range. That's those field headers that I use down below. So I'm going to delete all that out, and I want to click on cell A130, hold my shift key, cursor across, and hit OK. And what it did is it just extracted all 34 records that were Gallagher's and put them down below. So that way, if you wanted to just kind of pull those things and copy them off to a different set, we could do something like that. So that's how you can use the advanced filter. Test that out with a couple different criteria, see what happens, get good and practice that. All right, let's hit Control Home. That is good. Let's save this work. Finally, the last thing that we want to do is we want to add in some pivot table. So I'm going to choose Insert, Add a Pivot Table. It grabs all my data, so that looks good. I want it as a new worksheet. That'll be fine. Hit OK. And the first thing I'm going to do is add the amount into my pivot table. So I check that. It gives me a grand total. I'm going to format that number so it's a little bit more readable. Go to my Home tab, choose a dollar format, get rid of the decimals. Then we could try this out. Try looking at this by department. All right, so I've got the appliances, the bedroom, the dining room, and living room. We could look at that information that way. We can sort it different ways if we like. You know, other things that you could add in here is we could, let's see, let's put in the type, and then I'll take my type, and hang on, I got to move this around a little bit so I can show you what I'm doing. I want to take my type and drag that up to the columns. Try again. Type, drag up to columns. That looks good. Let's go to Pivot Table Tools. Let's add a pivot chart. I want to try a stacked column chart. I like that. Alright, move this off to the side a little bit. There's OK. Let's hit OK. I can take my chart, move that off to the side, maybe down below, just so we can see it a little bit easier. I'm going to click back inside my table. I want to go to Pivot Table Tools, insert a slicer, and I'm going to add in the salesperson as a slicer. I can shrink up that box a little bit. Don't need it quite that big. Move this up to the top. And then if we want to focus in on one of the sales reps, I can click on Gallagher, see how that one worked. Try Grunwald, Sardellas, Desmarais, etc. You can choose any one of those sales reps, and you've got a pretty nice little way to analyze your data quickly. All right, I'm going to rename my sheet. Right click, rename it, call it my pivot summary. I can put that after the March data, so I can just click and drag on the sheet tab and move that around. If you want to make sure you get the headers and footers, select your sheets, group those all in, and then finally, before you finish everything off, you want to go to your Q&A and see if you can answer some of these questions. So for example, how many paid in full transactions are there? Well, I can find that out if I go to my March data. I could either just sort my data by the type, and let's see, what did we say? Was it how many paid in full were there? I think that was right. Let me just double check my question. How many paid in full transactions are there? So I'm going to scroll down until I find the paid in full. There they are. Hold my shift key, end and down. It looks as though there's 41 paid in full. Another way that you could do this is you could come down to here to my criteria area and type in paid in full and hit enter. And when I do that, there's my 41 records, and that way at least I also get the total amount, the average amount, the min, and the max on the paid in full if you wanted that information. So that's what I'd want you to type in here for the Q&A. You'd just type in 41 records and then explain how you did it. Sorted the data by type and counted, or use DCOUNT with paid in full, etc. All right, so give kind of a brief description about how you arrived at that answer. So I hope that works out and gets you going on completing this assignment. It took me, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, an hour, or something like that to wrap everything up. I think it'd probably be about that for you as well. Give it a try, test things out, make sure you understand it. If you have any questions, get a hold of me.